John's sorrow was particularly brutal that evening. It was almost as if Philine's stepmother had sensed that something in Philine had changed, and she had sought out a way to stamp out whatever it was that had altered her. And so, clad in her threadbare nightgown, Philine had to apply ointment to the new bruises and cuts from Jonsara's latest bout of violence. But the pain was not what dominated her thoughts that night. Instead, her mind drifted to the afternoon and that time spent under the gnarled tree with Roderick, where she had let the tears from years of pain and grief flow freely in the presence of someone else, someone who understood and even cared for her.
Roderick.
Feline recalled the things she had shared and how he had also unexpectedly opened up to her. It had been the first time he ever acknowledged his own circumstances, and he told her about his own life, the rejection and abandonment of his father, the trials of living with a mother who lived life teetering between boundless rage and unfathomable sorrow. He told her how, as a child, he had lived with the constant fear of losing his only remaining family member, and how he had had to repeatedly rush in to save his mother right in the nick of time. Feline understood that this watchful quality of his had led to him closely observing everyone around him, and that had apparently included her, so that when he'd seen how stricken she'd looked the day she got news of Conrad's death, he had instantly recognized the signs and worried for her safety. Feline had listened quietly with her arms still wrapped around him and her head resting on his chest, but she had been unable to say out loud what she knew in her heart of hearts to be true.
If he had not been there and brought me back, I probably wouldn't have returned to the dorm.
She would have cried herself to sleep and closed her eyes in that cold tower. Her body would have gotten colder and colder as the night wore on. She would have never opened her eyes again. Or maybe she would have let sorrow overtake her such that she would have run out into the snowstorm. She had felt so alone and desperate that day that it was not beyond the realm of possibility. That truth scared her.
But I won't give up so easily again.
Feline said to herself as she finished treating the last of her wounds by the light of her last candle stub. Yes, she was battered and in pain, but she would never again throw herself away into the valley of despair as she had almost done then. Her life was not easy, and as long as she lived in the same house as John Sarah, her life wouldn't get any better. She was sure that she was not done with tears in her lifetime, but for once she decided that in spite of the tears that might fall, she would not give up. She looked at her mirror and saw in her grass-green eyes a determination that had never been there before.
I'll learn to be stronger for me and for him. I can do it, 'cause I'm not alone anymore.
She went to bed then, wincing at the pain in her ribs from Jonsara kicking her there earlier. But she lay carefully down in her narrow bed, pulled the faded coverlet over herself, and immediately went to sleep. She was awakened at dawn by a strange flash of light, and as she blinked into awareness, she almost imagined that sparkles of light were drifting down on her. She thought, inexplicably, of Conrad, and for once she remembered her little brother, not as the sick little boy of her memories, but as the joyful, playful one who had loved to cavort in the garden with her. Feline knew then that wherever he was much happier now. She got ready for work in a contemplative mood, but as she was bathing, she received word from Lord Bernard, Lady Myne's assistant, to not show up for work that day. That was very odd, so Feline sent Roderick an ordinance and asked him if he wanted to hang out. She did not receive a reply of any kind, however, and she thought it out of character that he wouldn't even send back at least an acknowledgment that he had received the message.
He must be very embarrassed from what happened yesterday. I hope this doesn't make things awkward between us.
She went downstairs for breakfast, and just as she was finishing, her stepmother and her aunt joined her in the dining room and demanded that she brew some fresh tea. Philine sighed, but obeyed. She also sliced and toasted some bread for them and brought out butter and a pot of prairie jam from the cold room. She was serving the two women their teas when she overheard their conversation.
Lady Senior said that they were all to be apprehended and will receive the harshest punishment.
Jansara said with a malicious glint in her eyes.
Serves them right, if you ask me,
said Philine's aunt.
That salon business was nothing but a cesspit of dissent, I imagine. To think that they hoped to fool people into believing that they were just reading books.
Philine felt a spike of alarm, and in spite of knowing that she was not supposed to interrupt them, she did so anyway.
What are you talking about, Auntie?
Her aunt quirked an eyebrow, but for once she did not chastise her for breaking into the conversation.
Noble establishment that served as a front to hide political descendants was shut down yesterday evening. There were people from the old Veronican faction involved, even those who aren't supposed to join any social circle. You know, from the purge, there is now some uproar or other about what is to be done about them.
I bet they were planning treason.
Jansara spat out contemptuously.
Remember, that's how Lady Veronica's own sins were hidden. She used her tea parties for unlawful deeds.
Indeed, our Ehrenfest will be sure to execute them all, and their entire families as well. He wasn't even lenient on his own mother.
He'd be a fool to show them any mercy.
The women laughed, too lost in their conversation to notice how Philine's face was getting paler and paler. However, they did notice when a white bird appeared suddenly and flew around the room. Both women extended their arms, expecting it to be for one or the other of them, but it landed on Philine's shoulder instead. Philine froze, teapot in hand, wondering if this was some kind of mistake. But then she realized that it had to be from Roderick, or maybe from Lord Bernard, people she did not want her family to know about. So she set down the pot and walked out, ignoring the stares from the incredulous women. Once inside the safety of her room, she activated the small ivory bird and heard the message. Soon, Philine was rushing out of the room, bumping violently against Jansara, who had been listening at the keyhole, no doubt. Philine didn't care. She didn't even notice that she had sent the woman sprawling at the collision. She ignored her cries of indignation and the shrill threats and curses Jansara hurled after her. She had more important things to worry about, after all. She had never visited the Med-Noble section, except to travel back and forth from work, and she did not even know where Roderick's house was, but finding him was easy enough. He told her that his house was set close against the eastern wall, and that he would spread out a white blanket on the lawn behind his house as a signal for her.
Roderick,
she said the moment she landed and dismissed her high beast. She ran toward him and wrapped her arms around him as if it was the most natural thing in the world.
Roderick, Roderick, please tell me that it's not true. Please tell me you're not leaving.
Roderick held her tight and drew in a shaky breath.
I'm sorry, Philine, but I'm afraid my luck has run out at last.
He said with the same unamused laugh that he used to laugh back when they had first met each other.
I should be grateful in spite of everything, though. Lady Charlotte intervened in some way, so the worst that could happen didn't end up happening. though I guess that hardly counts since she's the reason things ended up like this.
Lady Charlotte?
Philine said, looking up at him in surprise.
What has she to do with it?
Roderick quickly explained what he knew about the salon and Lady Charlotte's secret visits there.
So is it true, Roderick? Is it true what the gossips are saying?
Philine told him about what Jonsara and Philine's aunt had said over breakfast. Roderick shook his head.
It's all a mess of truth and lies. Keep in mind that Lady Sienna is bitter because Lady Myne would not let her into the salon. As nice as she is, even Our Lady couldn't stand that hateful chaos of her. But that doesn't matter anyway.
Doesn't matter anyway. Roderick!
Listen to me, Philine.
Roderick placed his hands on her shoulders and looked straight at her eyes, looking very serious indeed.
We don't have time. And I need you to do me a favor.
Anything.
Philine said without a moment's hesitation. Roderick blinked in surprise at her impassioned words, and his face softened a little as he looked at her earnest expression.
Oh, Philine. Why did it have to be now? I wish.
He dropped his head and sighed, before getting a hold of himself and fixing her a determined look.
Never mind. Listen, don't worry about me. Don't even think about me. My mother and I are leaving the city for good. We have until tonight to pack, and it's unlikely we will see each other after today. So I want you to know that despite everything, we will be fine. One of the friends my mom made at the salon is from a southern province, and she has distant relatives who are willing to take us in, so we will not be cast out with nowhere to go.
Roderick, I don't want you to go. Not now. Not when...
Philine.
Roderick said, shutting his eyes tight. The way he said her name sounded like he was in pain.
Please. Please don't make this harder than it has to be.
Philine clamped her mouth shut. She couldn't help herself. She had to ask.
But where are you going?
Roderick hesitated.
Roderick, tell me, please.
No one is supposed to know, since we'll pretty much be living in hiding. But we are going to Ildner.
Ildner?
Roderick nodded, looking grim.
We will not be destitute. We'll have money even after having to pay the high punishment fee. Plus, I have the money I have earned at all this time and the money from my book. The only problem is that I will not be allowed to return to the Royal Academy in the winter. And for that, I'm sorry.
Philine gasped.
They aren't letting you return? But how will you pass your lessons? You won't be able to graduate next year.
That meant that without his certificate, Roderick wouldn't ever be able to work as a proper scholar. Not only that, but he would never inherit title or lands that he had still stood to get upon coming of age. He wouldn't be acknowledged as a proper noble. But most importantly, he never walked with her to the graduation ceremony. Philine's heart hurt suddenly when she realized that all this time she'd been harboring a secret hope that they'd walk together during their graduation. It was an absurd and impossible hope, but dreams were dreams for a reason, weren't they? The more impossible and the more out of reach they are, the more one ends up reaching for them.
I had hoped to ask you one day.
Roderick began.
Maybe not at graduation, but when you and I were able to stand on our own and make a name for ourselves.
Roderick took a nervous, shaky breath.
If you'd be willing to embroider my cape and let me cover you with it and shield you from others who would harm you, so you'd never have to cry again. I know this is the worst moment for me to tell you this, but you need to know, for a long time, Bluanfa has danced in my heart whenever I've looked at you.
Philine gasped.
But Roderick, I'm no one special. I'm so unworthy.
Roderick chuckled sadly, touched her chin gently, and lifted her face to him.
You're always going on about wanting to be stronger and better. I don't know what other nonsense, but believe me, Philine, you are enough just as you are. You're incredible, and I could only wish that I had more time to become someone worthy of you. Someone you could be proud of, just as I am proud of you. I've wanted to live up to your kindness, your goodness, and your bravery. I wanted to pay you back for all the times you helped me keep going.
But I did nothing.
You have no idea how your friendship helped me. Philine, it was bound to happen. I knew it the moment you held out your hand to me when no one else would. Do you know, Philine? Your heart is so beautiful that it could never be improved on, and
His eyes glittered with unshed tears.
my heart delights in spring for you.
Philine was a crying mess. She was both elated and heartbroken, overjoyed and despondent. She was living in the flesh what she had only dreamed could happen, and now there was nothing else she could do except say to him the words that she thought she'd never been able to say.
My heart also delights in spring for you, Roderick.
They hugged for a long time afterward, clinging to the moment because they knew that once it passed, they would not be able to see or touch each other again. Third bell rang in the distance, however, and Roderick took a deep breath and stepped back from the embrace.
I had one favor to ask of you, remember?
I remember.
He turned and retrieved his leather bag, from which he took out another sheaf of papers that were covered front to back by his familiar handwriting, though it was considerably thinner than the first one he'd shown her.
Sorry, I was taking a drink. I started working on this not too long ago, and I barely finished it last night, so it's a mess.
Philine looked down at the bundle, on whose first page was the title, The Princess in the Tower.
I drew inspiration from the prose. I drew inspiration from the prose and the world of Kellerland stories.
Roderick said.
I wanted to write a story that is both an adventure story and a romance story. But I also wanted to make people laugh. It's about a cowardly knight who somehow ends up rescuing a princess who has been kidnapped and kept in a cold tower. She is much braver than he is, and she is far from impressed with him. So at first they bicker and fight, but they need each other to make it out alive from the clutches of their enemies, and are forced to stay together and overcome many challenges as they make their way back home.
Do they live happily ever after in the end, like in the Kellerland stories?
Philine asked, with a small smile. She was of the belief that all stories needed to end happily. Roderick smiled, warmth returning to his hazelnut eyes as he looked at her.
What else could you expect? In the end, the knight overcomes his cowardice and becomes the bravest and strongest knight in the kingdom for her sake.
It sounds wonderful.
Philine said with a wistful little sigh.
I'm glad you think so.
Roderick murmured.
It's a tale that even children can read. I specifically chose clear and uncomplicated language with the hope that maybe in the future a child will read this story and draw inspiration from the main characters. They will be rescued by the princess of the tower, just like I was by her.
Philine felt a lump grow in her throat. She knew what this book meant and what he wanted her to do with it, so she hugged the manuscript to her chest protectively.
Don't worry. I will see to it. I will make sure that everyone reads it, and that they are also safe by you, my brave knight.
Philine was not ready to face the wrath of Jonsara. In fact, she was so caught up in her personal grief that she had forgotten all about what had happened earlier. Therefore, she was caught by surprise when her stepmother started abusing her the moment Philine entered the house. But sometimes things happen in life that set things in perspective. And at that moment, Philine realized that she had had enough. The petty, violent, vicious woman that had made her life miserable for so many years had lost her power over her at last. Because Philine learned that there were things in life that she feared even more than her stepmother's wrath. Being beaten, berated, humiliated was nothing, absolutely nothing, when faced with the worst alternative, losing the one she loved. Jonsara was intent on knowing who Philine was talking to and what she'd rushed over to do that she tried to pry the leather satchel containing Roderick's manuscript from Philine's grasp. The thought that the foul woman would get her hands on the precious manuscript made Philine snap, and the tiny flame of rebellion inside her blazed to life. Calling forth knowledge from the knight's curriculum, which she had transcribed, she balled her fist and swung out her arm. Her form was not the greatest, and an unbearable pain bloomed in her hand, but the punch connected, and she heard a satisfying crack that sounded a lot like the sound of a nose breaking. Jonsara...
Go, Philine!
Yeah, right. Go, girl! Jonsara went tumbling backwards with a loud cry as blood from her nose sprayed down her yellow dress. Unfortunately, however, Philine's father walked into the room at that moment and witnessed the entire thing. He roared at Philine and came charging at her. Philine did not stand her ground, however. Ordinarily, she would have subjected to the punishment from her father meekly, but this time she decided to believe in what Roderick had said, that she didn't have to be braver or stronger than she already was. This also meant that she didn't have to put up with the abuse either. She just needed to survive by any means possible so she could do what was most important to her. She needed to get Roderick's manuscript to Lady Myne, even if she wasn't able to proofread it for him first. Her body moved reflexively, and she ran from the man who had long ceased to become her father and her protector. She was out of the house and was flying towards Lady Myne's estate before she knew what she was doing. The attendant that opened the door at Lady Myne's blinked in shock when he saw her.
I would like to see Lady Myne, please,
Philine said, swaying on her feet.
It's an emergency.
Fran appeared behind the other attendant. When he saw Philine, he exclaimed and ushered her in without waiting for her to explain things or state the purpose of her visit. He led her to a small parlor she'd never been in before, and ordered a servant to bring her refreshments and another to summon a physician.
I don't need these things. I am just fine,
Philine thought, but she was too weak and drained to protest. The room began to spin, and she closed her eyes for a moment while she collected herself. Only then did she realize she spent most of her mana flying here at top speed. When she opened them again, the tea was next to her, and Lady Myne was stepping inside the room. Her golden eyes looked troubled, and she exclaimed in shock when she saw Philine.
What's going on? Why do they all look shocked?
Philine didn't see what the others saw. Her disheveled hair, her cut face, the dark bruise in her eye beginning to darken, and her torn dress. She was an absolute mess.
Philine, what happened?
Lady Myne said, taking the seat next to hers.
Why are you all scratched and bloody?
She turned to the attendant.
Fran, did you summon a physician?
I did, my lady. He just got here.
Please bring him in directly. Meanwhile, Philine, please take this potion.
Lady Myne said, taking a vial from her belt, uncorking it, and placing it in her hand.
I promise it will make you feel better. Though I should warn you that it tastes like death.
Philine was too weak to protest, so she took the offered vial. She made a face the moment the potion touched her tongue, she writhed in her seat as it went down her throat.
Feel better?
Lady Myne asked once she had recovered from the appalling experience. Philine nodded. Odd. Not only did she feel her mana reserve replenish, but she felt her limbs return to their normal state. She no longer felt faint and weak, and once the physician examined her, he cast healing magic on her, erasing both the new and the old wounds in the process. Philine had never in her life been healed like this. All she'd ever had been smelly ointments and salves for all her cuts and bruises. However, she shook her head and remembered why she was there in the first place. The moment they had treated her wounds, she told Lady Myne the reason she was there. Lady Myne listened as Philine told her about her meeting with Roderick, and then she received the manuscript he'd been working on. For some reason, Lady Myne didn't look as excited as she always did whenever she received a completed manuscript for a new book. Instead, she looked pale and confused once Philine finished her story.
Philine, are you entirely sure about this? Roderick said this to you?
Yes, I just came back from talking to him.
Lady Myne's eyes widened and she looked aghast.
Did he do this to you?
Philine gasped.
Oh, no, my lady. Roderick cares for me and would never raise his hand against me. I just had trouble at home before coming here. But that doesn't matter. What matters most is that you please read the manuscript and consider...
Philine?
Myne said, putting aside the manuscript and looking at her with a serious expression.
Philine, you are the thing that matters most to me right now. Answer me honestly. What happened when you went home? Tell me.
Philine hesitated. She had already told Lady Myne about her circumstances some time ago, but now she was forced to go into more detail. Lady Myne looked distraught at the revelations.
Are you safe with them? Can you even return to them after this?
Philine was silent for a moment, thinking back to the scene at home. If she returned, she would pay for it dearly. They might even cast her out altogether.
The truth is, I have nowhere else to go, and no one to belong to now that Roderick is...
Her vision blurred. Oh, she had not wanted to think about the future, but now that she was being forced to face it, she couldn't help the tears that ran down her face, for she knew that without Roderick nothing else mattered. Nothing. There was nothing left to live for, nothing else to hope for. Friendship and love had been taken from her at the same time, and she didn't know how she'd go on. It was like losing Conrad all over again. But this time, there would be no one to save her. But maybe she needed to save him this time around.
Please, my lady,
She said, suddenly inspired.
if it is within your power, or if you know what could be done, could they be spared? Can you save them? Is there any way to intervene so that Roderick is not taken from me? I don't know how I'll be able to go on without him by my side at this point.
Philine began crying in earnest then, but then she felt arms around her. Lady Myne herself was hugging her, and she also shed tears for her.
Having the one you love you back, is nothing short of a miracle.
Philine heard Lady Myne murmur forlornly.
The pain you're experiencing must be unbearable. And yet,
Lady Myne didn't finish her thought. Instead, she sighed and wondered out loud why love had to be so painful. Philine did not return home that day. Lady Myne told her that there was no way she was sending her back to her abusive family, and even told her that she would give her a place to live in her house. However, as to what she had asked for regarding Roderick and the rest, Lady Myne warned her that she didn't have as much influence as she imagined, but that she would do her best. An attendant then took Philine to an upstairs room that was even larger than John Sarah's and furnished with all kinds of luxurious furniture. A maid then was sent up to attend to her and helped her bathe, washing her hair with a liquid that made Philine's hair silky soft. Then the maid set out a new set of clothes for her to wear and turned the bed covers for her, encouraging her to lay down in it to rest until lunchtime. Philine obeyed and promptly fell into an exhausted, dreamless sleep. She slept through lunch, and when she woke up, it was very late in the afternoon. Rain was falling, and servants were wheeling in a cart with dinner for her. She wasn't hungry at all, but she did not want to offend her host by refusing the delicious meal that they had sent up for her. Once everything was taken away, Philine stood by the window and looked out at the fading afternoon. The world outside looked gray and forlorn. There was no trace of summer left. The forest would surely begin to turn brown, the leaves would fall, and the wind would get colder and colder. There would be no more root trips to be found either. Philine wept a little at the realization that the most happy time in her life had come to an end now that Roderick was gone. That night, Philine lay in a warm, luxurious bed, but unable to sleep, tortured by the thought that Roderick was at that moment leaving the city, and she would never see him again. The next day passed, but Philine didn't remember much of it. It was Earth Day, so she didn't have to show up for work. So while she didn't have to show up for work, she still went downstairs to the workshop. Lord Bernard was the only one there, and he gave her a look through his thick, dark eyebrows as he glanced up from his papers and saw her sit in her usual seat.
Why are you here?
Whoa, he asked in his, in his usual deep, growly voice. Batman!
First he gives us the death shumils, and now he gives us ghosts.
It's early morning. He has like that deep voice. All right, sorry. He asked in his
I haven't had coffee voice.
Yeah. Philine looked down demurely, placing one hand over the other on the surface of her desk.
I am here to work.
It's Earth Day. You're not supposed to come to work.
But you're working today, Lord Bernard.
I serve her ladyship Myne as a retainer.
Philine blushed, feeling embarrassed, but she drew a deep breath and looked up at the med scholar, who was far more intimidating to her than she dared to admit, for the simple reason that she held him in such high regard.
Well, so am I. Do you not remember that day I vowed to serve her, Lord Bernard? I will not live under her roof without earning my keep. I am determined to make myself useful.
He looked a little shocked at first, but then he gave a great booming laugh.
Who would have thought that you would turn out to be spirited away after all? Well then, by all means, work. We have fallen dreadfully behind all of this business, and now my lady has to deal with so many bothersome things.
He stood with a tired sigh and picked up his books and papers. He was apparently finished with what he had been working on, and he nodded at her.
Well, you know what to do.
Thank you.
Philine said with relief, and got down to work. The solitary hours passed by. As evening approached, Lady Myne, dressed in a gorgeous golden green evening dress, stepped in once to check up on her and make sure she was all right. But she looked preoccupied and did not stay long. Philine did not voice her concern about Roderick and did not ask her if there was any word about him yet, figuring that her lady already had enough on her mind and would mention anything the moment there was an update. Philine was determined to try to forget her cares through work and to make herself as useful as possible. She worked through dinner time, worked as the house went quiet, and a rainstorm buffeted the tall windows of the workshop. She ended up working so late that she drifted off to sleep at her desk.
You little idiot. Wake up!
Well done, Vincent.
So
Well
good.
done.
So good, Vince. She heard a familiar voice and she jolted awake. She would have screamed awake at this point. She blinked up at Lord Bernard, who was glowering down at her, looking exasperated and a little bit concerned too. Philine heard the sound of a single clinking bell.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Philine cried, feeling her face grow hot with mortification.
Get upstairs and go to bed. This is no place for sleeping.
Lord Bernard said, and drove her out of the workshop, while instructing a maid to take her to her room. It was already the next day, a work day. For once she hoped Lord Bernard would send another ordinance telling them not to show up for work. But then she immediately felt guilty for thinking that. She was just starting out as a retainer for Lady Myne, and she already wanted to slack off? No, indeed. She didn't even go to bed. Instead, she examined her room, noticed that there were several dresses in the wardrobe, and began going over them to see which of them would fit her best and what alterations she would have to do so they would suit her better. Then she washed up and got ready for the day with the help of a maid before heading downstairs at second bell for her usual work. The days dragged on and on. It wasn't like she was unhappy or badly treated in her new home. She was always on the edge, always wondering and fretting about Roderick, always wishing that he would send word to her, but knowing that he had meant what he'd said. He would never endanger her by contacting her. She did not see Lady Myne, and for about a week had to hold her peace, bide her time, and pray and hope that all would be well. Meanwhile, she was truly settling into her new life. After reworking the dresses they'd given her, she now had a wardrobe far prettier and fashionable than she'd ever had in her life, complete with fine underthings and all kinds of other new accessories. Whenever she looked into the large and expensive mirror in her room, Philine was shocked at how different she looked these days. Her honey gold hair shone luxuriously, and while she still looked pale from her sleepless nights, she had lost that weird, wobbly smile that she had always used to wear to cover her anxiety and fear.
So this is what the real me looks like.
She turned from the mirror and began to get ready for the day. She chose to wear a pretty green dress with white and gold lace. She was putting on the finishing touches to her hair when an ordinance flew into the room and landed on her arm. Philine expected it to be a message from Lord Bernard, but it was not Lord Bernard. Philine ran down the hallway, bumping into a startled maid as she did so.
Please excuse me.
Philine said, turning back and apologizing.
Did I hurt you? I'm sorry, it's just...
The maid's eyes widened.
What's the matter, my lady? Is anything wrong?
Philine shook her head, feeling that she could not contain the joy she felt at the moment.
No, everything is perfect. Oh, why can't everyone be as happy as I am right now?
The maid blinked at her in confusion.
Lady?
He's back!
Philine said, breaking into tears.
Roderick is back. The Archduke extended his grace and benevolence and allowed them back home. Allowed all of them to return. He can return to the Royal Academy this winter after all. He can graduate. We can.
Philine couldn't even finish her sentence. She was that happy. Meanwhile, the maid looked incredibly uncomfortable at seeing a noble girl display her emotions so openly. But Philine was sorry that she was distressed. But while Philine was sorry that she was distressing the poor maid, she just couldn't help it. There was no way she could contain her overwhelming happiness and cover it all up with her old, weird, wobbly smile.
I need to go see him,
she said.
He asked me to go. Please tell Lady Myne that I'll be back to thank her in person. Oh, and please tell Lord Bernard not to worry. I'll be back in time for work. I won't be late for even a moment.
Philine said as she flitted away down the hallway, half dancing, half whirling with joy as she went.
After all, there's so much to do.
The forest glistened in the bright morning sun after the previous night's rainfall. A cold northern breeze announced that the season of Shudzaria was here at last. The grass was no longer lush, and the bright green leaves were quickly turning colors, while other trees were already beginning to shed their foliage. There was not a single root trip to be found in all the forest, but the gnarled raffle tree next to the river was heavy with ripe fruit that shone like glistening jewels in the morning sunlight. Underneath the tree, Roderick eagerly waiting for the one his heart delighted in, and when he saw her rushing to him at last, looking radiant, lovely, and joyful, Roderick ran to her, spun her in his arms with a laugh, and embraced her. As they held each other in the midst of a sparkling world that shone bright with promise, Roderick vowed then and there that he would never, ever again leave her behind. And of course, Philine, being Philine, cried in his arms. But her tears were tears of joy. And despite knowing that they would have to face many challenges from their family and society before they could be together, Philine knew that the better, stronger, and braver version of herself would see it all through with the one at her side, and that in the end, they too would be able to claim their happily ever after. End of chapter.
I'm not crying, you are.
Beautiful.
Aww. So that's my attempt at that ship, you guys.
What do you mean attempt?
Yes, that was my
That was
attempt.
awesome.
So
round of applause for Magpie.
oh, thank you guys, and thank you so much for reading it. Like, oh my gosh, you guys, it's so cool with you guys just voicing it. Oh, yeah, I got like tears in my eyes too. And Bernard!
Best chapter.
Right, I love this
I was
chapter.
gonna say, I thought I heard someone sniffling.
Yo, it's me.
Yeah, I do love a happy ever after, you guys. So here's the note for this chapter at the end. Part of why Myne was so adamant about saving her friends from the salon is also because she sympathizes with Philine, and her heart breaks at the fact that these two would be torn apart. A World Away is an angsty story, and the end might not be your standard fluffy happily ever after type of ending. So I wanted to insert a more ordinary standard happily ever after somewhere in here. So here it is. Again, Berkey, if you're listening, a big thanks to you. You are the one who took time to proofread this monster. And if you see any errors, it's because later on I always went back to add stuff or change stuff. So that was all me.
Because good is never good enough.
Yeah, I know. Hey, that's something that happens to all fanfic writers, at least the ones that I've talked to. Like, we go back to revise and stuff. But
Yeah, you're right. You are absolutely right.
yeah, but did you guys like try to think about like what was going on in the main story while stuff was happening in her story? You guys...
Absolutely not.
Okay, so let me just give this little okay, so let's go back to the day when they I think when Roderick saw her hands, saw that she was bruised and stuff. They had been dismissed early because that was the day that Myne learned that Lady Elvira was going to go to the salon. So she dismissed everyone because she's like, okay, have to get busy. I don't have time for like all these things. So she just dismissed all of them, told them to go home early. So the two went out to like hang out at the river outside the city. Then that's when Philine told everything, and then when they opened to each other. The next day, Philine woke up and she saw she thought of Conrad, but she saw kind of like a flash of light. That's because during that time, Eckhart and Myne had been doing like this big prayer. Remember from yeah. So because they were praying because of people who had gone ahead of them, the blessing somehow reached her as well, so that she was able to also come to peace when it have a little peace with regards to Conrad. So she remembers him as a little boy who was happy and joyous rather than somebody who was suffering. Then the day. Oh?
Absolutely beautiful. That is beautiful that you were able to hold that theme.
Yeah, and then so I tried to all of this story kind of has a parallel, and this actually ends a little bit. We haven't yet gotten to in the last chapter with Myne and Ferdinand fight. She's really pushing for it because she has Philine and Roderick in mind, knowing that she has to do what she can to save them. So it's not just her friends from the salon, she's thinking about these two. That's why she goes above and beyond, literally is reckless. Also, one final one, when Philine falls asleep in the workshop, she stays there all day long. That's the day that Myne is getting ready to meet with Ferdinand. That's why when Myne shows up, she's wearing her fantastic gown, the one that I showed you guys. That's because she just checked in on Myne. I mean, she just checked in on Philine, and then she went to say hello to Ferdinand and greet him and host a dinner. So it's stuff is happening in the main story while all this is happening, and we'll see a lot more. Well, maybe I'm not. Yeah, we will see these two. So as the main story continues, I will continue to update you on what's happening with these two. So, but yeah, that's just Philine and Roderick. I think that they would have been lovely in canon. I think, but of course, nothing can beat Philine and Daniel. But they would have been lovely too. Okay, let's see comments. Okay, here's my comment window. Hi, Remy says, Philine also stopped seeing Myne in the mansion. Is it because Myne is bedridden? I will explain why. Be on the lookout for that, though. I will explain why for about a week she did not see Myne. Time Lord Boy says, Magpie, who is the Russian bloke? That's actually Vincent, and he's a German bloke.
What?
So he is reading Bernard. Happy to see you here, Time Lord Boy. Time Lord Boy says, yeah, happily ever after. And hi Remy says, but at what cost? I know, we don't know yet at what cost. And that's why you guys have to come back to know at what cost, you guys. Like, part of the cost we already know. Myne had to like literally like push herself to the limit to like a very dangerous state. Just so Ferdinand would help her, which was reckless and stupid, but give her a break. She's barely just come of age and she doesn't know any better. She'll grow up. So yeah, we'll see more about that. Little Butterfly says, beautiful chapter ending. I'm glad you liked it. Also notice symbolism. I like to point out stuff. Notice the raffle tree was not ripe when they visited it earlier, but once their love finally could be able to like they could unite, it was now like the tree had finally fully ripened raffles.
Nice bit of symbolism there.
Yeah, a little. Oh?
Magpie, you're too high-brained for me, like too much. I'm glad you are explaining it because I wouldn't have thought of anything.
Well, and you know what? It helps that when you write, it's good to always share ideas with people. Like, because when I was writing this, I would tell like some of the proofreaders or beta readers, I'd be like, hey, can you guys like read this? And sometimes they would be like, oh, and what about this? And what about that? So a lot of times I'm like, wow, those are great ideas. Now, there is a thread for A World Away for those of you who are interested and have are caught up. But there's a thread where everybody is giving me ideas of how to go about the next couple of stories, and it's really good ideas. It's a nice way to collaborate. It's kind of like a collaborative effort. So a lot of details, sometimes they just came because readers were like, how about this? How about that? I'm like, that's a great idea. So can't take all the credit, but yeah. Yeah, so let's see.
All hail the Collaborator Squad.
Yes. Yukihime points out, ooh, Ferdinand did what Myne asked him to do. He did. We are going to have a Ferdinand chapter. Let me see. The next chapter is, I forget if we have another interlude or... Ooh. Okay, the next chapter is the beginning of part 3, and it's a Sylvester point of view, actually. So, if you want to find...
Magpie's excited about it, so it must be good.
Well, I haven't read... Okay, you guys, I haven't read this one in a while. Like, it's been 2 years since I started writing this, so I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that part. So, we're gonna read that one and see what happened with him, with Ferdinand, and Myne, hopefully, within the next 3 chapters. So, I hope that you guys join in for that. Oh, Yukihime, 252, Magpie predicted the demure meme. Yeah, the demure. Do you guys catch me laughing at the demure? So yeah. Thank you guys for reading with me. I've had so much fun so far. If you guys have any thoughts about the fanfic so far, please let me know in the comments. If you're rewatching this, always like to read your comments. But yeah, again, I just want to say thank you to Teal, who read Philine, Patrick, who read Roderick, Little Butterfly, who read Jonsara. Oh, by the way, you guys, Jonsara hitting the ground with bloodied nose. Oh, so satisfying.
Cathartic.
Yes.
Yeah, it really helped with the tension. So, like, that's when I fully stopped crying. I was like,
Yeah.
Have you written this fight scene by yourself, or has Fergie written it?
No, that one was by myself. I can do a single punch fight scene. If it requires multiple things like fighting stances and moves and choreography, no. I'm just like one punch girl. That's as much as I can do in real life and in writing.
One punch girl.
So yeah, that was all me. But let's see. So thank you to Junsara. Thank you to Butterfly who read Junsara. Yukihime also who brought in the auntie. Yes, that was a fun exchange with the two women. Again, if you also have to read between the lines, like what happened with the Veronica faction. I haven't yet talked about it, but there's some hints kind of there about what happened, so you can make your own.
I was kind of wondering if they were bringing it up in front of Philine on purpose.
Well,
later on they were acting very oblivious to the fact that she was in love with Roderick. So it still fits in my mind that they were doing it to taunt Philine, but yeah.
Well, unconsciously, because even without knowing it, they were being hateful. So that's the kind of poison they are. Now they're just being hateful little gossips who find delight in the suffering of others. But it just happened to be convenient because Philine, who was able to listen in on their conversation, and notice that Philine, even though she is the heir of the house, she is being made to do like servant work. That is just absolutely appalling. So, Philine. So,
and she's supposed to be the heir of the household, isn't she?
Yes, she is. Though so that's why she is not really afraid of. Well, she is afraid of being cast out, but once she comes of age and stuff like that, and she can inherit her house, she's good. She can do whatever. But she has to survive up till then, and it's surviving until then that's a challenge. I didn't mention anything about the baby, Junsara's child, but rest assured it's somewhere there. It's gonna cause a commotion, but Philine's gonna get her way. She has friends in high places, as we now see. Don't worry about her. She'll be fine.
I'm sure she'll have contact with Elvira, and Elvira is a force of nature.
Oh! I can't wait for a future couple of chapters. Ooh, okay. Don't make me. Yes, no spoilers. But she already is going to work with Elvira on the book. Remember, Philine started writing like some romance stories or like stories that she would overhear her fellow attendants, since she is in the attendant course, not the scholars course. Like they sit around and they sew and they talk about whatever romances and whatnot. So she decided to write down.
I thought that was a very interesting twist, like because she wasn't involved with Myne early on as her retainer, that she became an attendant instead of a scholar.
So her family always kind of thought that she was really useless, or they made her think that way. And they were going to send her off to like a crotchety old woman, like a relative. And
yes.
Yeah. Again, the influence of Myne.
Yes. So abusers, very typically, they will isolate the one that they are abusing, make them think that they have no one to rely on, and they can only depend on them.
Yeah, so that was the case for Philine, and it wasn't until she started earning money at the Royal Academy that she finally started to see like, hey, there's other prospects in my life. She's still going to continue to do her attendance course, but why can't she maybe do another course, or like at least work in scholar? Like she's doing crest work already as a scholar, and she's already working for Myne as a scholar. And now that she's living with Myne, I think her prospects are just gonna open far, far more. I'm happy for her. Why are you laughing?
Sorry, I put down too stupid for scholar, too weak for knight, and Time Lord boy sound. It sounds like my family.
Oh no!
I think that was poor timing.
I don't. Oh no. Time Lord Boy, by the way, it was a delight to have you with us when we watched Persuasion. I hope that when we do another watch party, that you can join us. I am going to eventually cover another classic book. We are going to do The Count of Monte Cristo. I'm thinking of watching the movie first and then reading the book. What do you guys think?
You can.
We could. I think for that one
Yeah,
we should, because then that way people will know where the story is heading. I don't know. We can.
Right.
I will say.
So I watched Ready Player One before I read the book, and I think because I watched the movie first instead of reading the book first, I think I can appreciate both now. Because if I'd read the book first, I would not like that movie at all.
No, yeah, you're completely right. I don't like the movie.
Okay, Teal.
Oh, all the Monte Cristo adaptions are much abbreviated, as you'd expect for a 1,300-page book. And
1,300?
It's gonna be a
they
long one.
changed.
I need to get into this book.
It's a good book, I will say. But they do also change a lot of the plot. So it's almost like its own separate thing.
Ah, okay. Wow, I'm excited now because I have seen adaptations, or one or two, but one I kind of forgot. But the fact that they have extra stuff, it's like, okay, you guys, when I first watched Pride and Prejudice, I did not watch the 2005. I did not watch the 1995. My first exposure was the one with what's his face? The British bloke. Black and white. He was
British bloke.
Black and white. Olivier.
Oh,
What's his name? Olivier something. British actor.
Yeah. Who could we forget?
Olivier something. Pride and Prejudice. Well, anyway, it was from the 1940 movie. I watched the 1940 movie. Laurence Olivier. There we go. Laurence Olivier. I watched that one first. I was like, how nice. So I went. And then my sister actually started reading the book. And in the 1940 version, they don't have the part where Darcy shows up in Pemberley and she goes to Pemberley and they meet each other. Like when she read that part of the book, she literally gave she screamed. I was like, what is going on? She's like, they met. I was like, what? So yeah, sometimes watching the thing and then reading reading is very, very good. So I'm just saying. So I'm thinking about that.
So, for instance, Amazon did a adaptation of one of my favorite book series, The Wheel of Time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Should I read it first or should I not? Even
the books are far superior. The books are far superior. That show is a travesty.
And the book's taking a chunk of my lifetime.
I know that Brandon Sanderson, he's like one of the few fantasy authors I actually read, you guys. He continued writing it. So yeah. If it's like an epic fantasy like that, I'm down for it. But
he finished the last two books for Robert Jordan.
Yeah. So I'll check those out. But in this channel, since we only do copyright-free stuff and fanfics of questionable origin, we are going to be reading...
Smut!
Oh, come on!
No, Patrick, at the moment, it's only Magpie's fanfic. If we get more fanfics, then you can call it.
Well, whatever. I am going to heavily...
Well, I guess I should finish mine then.
I'm going to heavily edit this fanfic, so I will no longer be accused with such vile accusations. All right. But we're going to be reading like more books. So after A World Away, we have Count of Monte Cristo in mind. I have Secret Garden and Little Princess in mind. So we have other stuff. There's still lots of books we can do. And of course, Edgar Allan Poe.
You can also read stories from the Brothers Grimm.
From where? The Brothers Grimm. Oh, yes. Oh, boy.
Classic German stories for kids and of all ages.
Just don't read the H.P. Lovecraft stories live, because
Yeah.
he says some words that you shouldn't.
Yeah, somebody recommended H.P. Lovecraft, and I'm like, I haven't read a single book by him. So.
Oh, he absolutely has one of the greatest influences on the horror genre there is. However, he has a problematic past that is hard to overlook.
I mean, now we get in the whole discussion if you disconnect the work from the author and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
Is it a good thing? Is it not? All the stuff.
In his stories, he has a cat with a certain name, which is the same as his real life cat with the same name, and I can't say that name.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So. There's symbolism in the cat's name. I see. Okay. I am not going to go after the stream and look up the name of said cat. All right. So we're going to continue chatting off the... because we're veering into lots of tangent stuff. But I just want to close out this read along. Say thank you to everybody who joined us. Remember, if you want to continue reading this without us, if the suspense is killing you, you can always go and read the rest of the fanfic. It's up like 89% is completed. It's up on Archive on Our Own. Find the link in the description. You can join us though on Wednesday afternoon, I think, for the next read along, which is going to be the Sylvester POV, and I believe we're going to be able to do a Ferdinand POV, I think. Sylvester, or is it a Eustace? I don't know, but I know for sure Sylvester POV. So do join us on Wednesday afternoon for that. And if you are reading Hannelore, if you have just finished reading A Sense of a Bookworm, and you don't know what to do with yourself, go and read Hannelore. We are reading Hannelore 2 chapters at a time every week. We're covering it. We read it together on the server here, in my server, on Monday afternoons, and then we go live on the other channel, talk about it, laugh about it, fangirl about it, or fanboy about it. So do join us. There's a lot of stuff going on here. Yeah. Anything else, you guys? Am I forgetting anything? I think I'm good, right?
Did you mention to like, subscribe, and
yes.
support you on Ko-fi?
Yes, like, subscribe, share, comment. It's always
buy her
good.
merch.
It's always good, and I am always thankful for any support that you guys can give. We are past 200 subscribers. I don't know how it happened, but we went up a bit in the last couple of 2 weeks, so I'm thankful for that. Let's shoot for another 200. All right, but we'll work on it. Anyway, we'll see you guys later.
No back for waiting. No back for waiting for Patrick's fanfic.
We have to, Patrick, get on that fanfic. I demand to read it. I demand to read it.
All right. I think I'll finally actually put some work into it.
All right, please do so. All right, everybody, thank you for joining us. We hope that you return to read the next couple of chapters till Wednesday or Tuesday, whenever. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Sayonara!
Adios.
Good night.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Did we just butcher the words?